Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of this. This is my Bible. I can see your face. Believe Better Ministries, Believe Something Better Miniseries. I don't know what I'm going to call it. I don't know exactly why I'm doing it, except for as I've said in the beginning, I was inspired by Jason Mayfield. I believe it's Jason Mayfield. I'm going to look that up right now so I can get it right for y'all. So if you want to go check him out, you can. I've looked at a lot of his stuff, and it Jason Mayfield. It's Grace for Life with Jason Mayfield. I've looked at a lot of his stuff, and him and I agree on the majors. He's in an Assemblies of God, which is Pentecostal, and so there's some points that we disagree with. But who are we going to agree with every time? I mean, that's why if you read the on our website, the majoring on the majors, it's the majors and the minors. And I came to find out after I made that title that it's a little misleading. Some people thought it was a comparative review or overview of the major prophets and the minor prophets. What it's really about is the major doctrines versus minor doctrines. That we want to major on the majors and let the minor doctrines go their way. I don't worry about the minor doctrines. I major on the majors. And so that means in the end I can have fellowship and communion and great discussions and love. I can love any Christian believer out there, really, whether that's Catholic or Presbyterian or Pentecostal or non-denominational or Episcopalian or Methodist, or the list goes on. There's how many denominations are there even now? But because I can major on the majors, I can enjoy fellowship and love and care for a brother in Christ, regardless of what their minor doctrines are. So I'm throwing up gang signs now. Well, no, that's I love you, I guess. I'm telling myself I love myself. So that's in the Kalitero for the first issue ever of Kalitero. That's in that in there, and it's also on our website. You can read it on our website. You can download the first issue of Kalitero absolutely free for PDF. You're always going to be able to download Kalitero for free in PDF, and you can download, but you can also go buy a copy of it, a physical copy of it, which I do have some pictures of an unboxing that I did of the first ever print run of Kalitero, and I'm going to put those up on Believe Better Ministries at some point. Not sure when right now. Life is hectic right now. We're doing a church camp. We're going here. We're going there. We're doing. I have my business, which is a martial arts studio. As I talked to you about in the very first, I had that pink shirt on, and that I had my business logo there. Last issue I showed, last one I had it on there. It's like I'm marketing for my business or something. It's not what I'm doing. If you are in Springfield and you do want martial arts lessons, you can come and talk to me. That's all I got. So the last two, we pretty much I did overviews of some wonderful Bibles that the first one was the Bibles that started me on the path of loving the Word of God and how I got there. The second one was Bibles that I got as an adult that I use now, really, or that I've used within the last few years in order to get to where I am and what I'm doing. And then now I really wanted to go back and talk about heritage. So I want to take a step back. So this episode is almost more of a prequel to episode 1 because it's my heritage in the Bible, my heritage in the Word. I've got some Bibles today that I want to kind of bring forth. See, I have a stack of Bibles right there. I'm not going to get to any of these, but I am going to get to this one. This is the one I'm reading out of, and these ones are my heritage in the Word. So bear with me as I adjust my camera back to where I need it. Sorry for the shadow up there. It's rather hot in Oregon right now, and so that's the ceiling fan going. If I had been smart enough, I probably would have turned that off before we got started, but it is what it is. So I want to start with my grandfather, my dad's dad, Ray May Sr. So I'm Ray May the 4th, as I talked about in the last episode. I'm Ray B. May the 4th. My wife got me a Bible, got my initials put on there. I'm Ray B. May the 4th, so I go by RB. My dad is Ray B. May the 3rd. My uncle, my dad's half-brother, was Ray May Jr. So long story short, my grandmother wanted to name her firstborn son after her husband. It was just the thing that she wanted to do. So instead of naming him Ray May the 2nd, because there already was a second, because there was already a Ray Jr., they named my dad Ray May the 3rd, even though he was second generation or second and a half generation. I mean, but he's Ray May the 3rd. I'm third generation, but I'm Ray May the 4th. So on and so forth as it goes. But my grandfather, Ray May Sr., I have some Bibles. I own 4 Bibles that were his. 3 of them are rather important to me. So I'm going to start with this one. It's a Cambridge Bible. It's an old Cambridge Bible. You open it up. It has his name on it. Baby May. That's why I wanted this Bible. I told my grandma I wanted this Bible. It is a Holy Bible Red Letter Edition. It's a Cambridge Bible. It was given to my grandfather, Ray B. May, from Canyon Bible Baptist Church in Majeska, California, which is Majeska Canyon. My grandfather was a Marine, so they moved around a lot. And so Majeska Canyon, I've heard a lot of stories of Majeska Canyon. But if you look at the front of this, it says that it is unconditionally guaranteed by the world's oldest Bible publishers. It contains the authorized King James Version, red letters, self-pronouncing, 8 colored maps, and a gazetteer with a presentation page in front. It's French Morocco leather, semi-overlapping covers, and 23 karat gold edges on there. I mean, look at that shine. 23 karat gold. French Morocco is held up rather well. It's got a little bit of what I think they call shelfware on it. See some of the shelfware there. Not that I'm in it, and it uses the really, really thin and rather opaque in comparison to today's standards. I mean, India paper. I wish they could use this India paper nowadays. But it is an old King James Version. And I just love it. And so I'm trying to find something. My grandfather, he was a marker. I think every Bible he ever held in his hands, he marked. And he especially loved Romans. And so I was hoping, yep. One thing I know, if I know anything about my grandfather passed away. Ray May Sr. passed away when I was 1 year old in 1990. He was 69. He's going to turn 70. He was born in 1921. One thing about my grandfather, if I know anything about my grandfather, it's that if you flip to a Bible that was his and you flip to Romans, this is Romans chapter 6. You flip to Romans, you can find something highlighted or underlined. That's my grandfather. Every time. This is just a beautiful little Bible. It's not the big connection for me as some of these other Bibles that I'm going to show you, but it is a big connection. That red, man, it's more of an orange. Get back to the Sermon on the Mount there. Look at that red though. It's more of an orange. I mean, it probably doesn't show up the way the way I'm seeing it, but still, it's quite the red, man. There we go. All red except for the verse numbers and this one verse down here. But I love the King James, the original King James, because I love English. I love languages, and so I love it for that reason. And I think the Psalms are just gorgeous in King James, and we will get to the Psalms. That is coming up in a future video. We will get to the Psalms. Man, I love the Psalms. I love poetry. As if you've been on BSB This Ministries, you know, because heck, I write and write poetry. There's poems in here that y'all haven't got a chance to read yet. I finished what I was calling book 1 of my Psalms that I was posting. It's been 4 years now since I posted those Psalms, something like that. That says book 2 right there, Psalm 41. So I've been writing many more that y'all haven't read yet, which you will get to. I will get them up there, and we will get it published. But this is my Papa's Bible, number 1, King James. Beautiful old Cambridge King James Bible. This one is another King James. And this one is, if you watched the last video, which dealt with Bibles, I also, at the tail end, I tacked on something I had recorded the very first night, but I had to record it on my phone differently. Over there I have a bookshelf, and this one was sitting on the bookshelf. It says Masonic Edition, Holy Bible, Masonic Edition. I don't know if this is real leather or not. I would assume not. It is not pleather, but I don't know what it is. It's blue, that's for sure. This is what the front of it looks like. See, there's the square and compass with the G in the middle, the international symbol of the Masons, Kyushu Lodge. How do you pronounce that? Fuchu, Japan. This was given to my grandfather by, it says it right in here, presented to Ray Ballard May by the Kyushu Lodge number 4, attested by, it's like, I live Reed. And so there's stuff for visiting with brethren and friends. There's special Masonic inserts. I believe this one also has India paper in it, though it doesn't tell you because it doesn't have the box anymore. It has a copyright, has the Masonic creed in there, the Masonic beliefs, the Masonic teachings, the words of the great Masonic divine R.W. and Reverend Joseph Fort Newton, the Bible in Masonry, the meaning of Masonry, the tradition of Solomon, the tabernacle in the wilderness, master built. I mean, like, it just has all this information at the very beginning. I haven't even got to the Bible. On page 34, page 44. 160 questions and answers pertaining to the symbolism of Masonry and its connection with the Bible. 7 pages on that. 50. Doors of Masonic knowledge. I'm going to skip forward here. There's an index of curious facts about the Bible. The Bible and King Solomon's Temple. With pictures. More pictures. I mean, it's just interesting stuff. But I think one of the more interesting things that I found is you get into the Bible, you get past all this stuff. It has a picture of the Masonic degrees in here, but the Bible is still the Bible. It is published by A.J. Holman Company in Philadelphia. It has the brevier text. Is the text conformable to that of the edition of 1611, commonly known as the Authorized or King James Version? And you could compare this word for word with the text in the other King James Bible I showed you, and it is still just the Bible. See these things? My grandfather loved putting bookmarks in there. We'll see that when we get to another one. So, as I told you before, you find a Bible that is my grandfather's. Okay, well, I'm going to stop in St. John here for a moment. Excuse me. In the Gospel of John. First of all, told you. He was a highlighter and an underliner. Romans chapter 10. Told you. Romans chapter 7. So yeah, that's actually chapter 6, verse 23. If I know anything about my grandfather, so that he will highlight something. So yes, it's the Masonic edition. No, I'm not a Mason. This is not a Masonic ring. That is merely just a sword and shield. And what it is, the sword is meant to look like a cross. And on the inside of it, it says Ephesians 6:13 through 17, which is the put on the full armor of God text right there. It's not Masonry. I'm not a Mason. I don't believe in Masonry. Look at how long that, look how overlapped that yap is from sitting on a shelf. This one had a pretty good size yap. But anyways, this was the first Bible that belonged to my grandfather that I ever received. My dad actually gave this to me as I was getting ready to move out of my parents' house. And there's actually a bookmark in here from me because I loved to pick up the King James and read the Psalms. And so there's a bookmark, and this is in Psalm 21. Probably 23, actually. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. Amen. So, I'm not a Mason, but this is still just a King James Bible. You get to the very end, and there's nothing after Revelation except for Revelation, map, and a note written in my grandfather's handwriting. Okay, before I get to the next Bible, I want to talk a little bit about a little bit of a different Bible. I hope you all watched my earlier ones because I talked a little bit. I got a little bit emotional in the first one. I don't know if that came across because I was trying really hard to hold it back. So I don't know if it came across, but I was a little emotional in the very first episode. And I lamented the fact that I lost a Bible of my dad's that my dad had given me. It was a Gideon's Bible, so it wasn't like some fancy Bible that was worth money, it was just a Gideon's Bible. Still, it was a Bible that my dad had gotten while serving in the army, and we're a military family. My grandfather served in the Marines for World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He was honorably medically discharged due to his heart, and that's what he ended up passing away from, was a heart attack. Later on, much later on, then he went to Biola Bible College, and yeah, just anyways. So when my dad graduated from high school and was getting ready to go off to college, my grandfather gave him a Bible. Now, I don't know where my grandfather stood at that point. I mean, I showed you that Masonic Bible. And my grandfather was a Mason. He wore his ring. Wore it on his left hand. Right there. And he was a Marine. And, so I don't know where he stood exactly, but he got my dad this little Bible. This little tiny pocket Bible. And my dad carried this with him. It went overseas with him. I mean, you can just see on the edges and the cover how worn this thing is. The leather's falling apart. It's an Oxford. This one's an Oxford, not a Cambridge. There is a difference, by the way. It's slight, but it's there. Ribbon in Jeremiah. Chapters 19, 20, and 21 are on that page. Spread. And my dad, I showed you that my grandfather outlined things. I, for the life of me, don't know what that's supposed to mean. I think it has something to do with when my dad was in the military. But anyways, my dad got from him to take notes in his Bible. I don't know where any other ones in this Bible are, to tell you the truth. I don't know if there's any other outlines, underlines, highlights. The text is really small. It is a pocket Bible if there ever was one. But my dad gave me this. I think they gave me this one when I was getting ready to go to college. This one is printed in Great Britain at the University Press, Oxford. But there are handwritten notes in the back. The defeat of God's enemy for the building by the supporting prayer of Aaron and Hur, Exodus 17:16. So my dad, if you were going to get into his Bible right now, you open just about every page, you'd see underlines and highlights and notes and handwritten notes. So that's something he grew into later on, definitely. So, I mean, and I'll show you, and the next Bible, I think in every episode there's been, so of this little mini-series, there's been a Bible. I said, well, if something happened to this Bible, I don't know what I'd do. And this is the Bible. This is God's Word. But this is an heirloom. This is a Bible that I'm going to pass down to my daughter. And she's going to pass it down to her daughter. You saw just this spine when at the end of the last episode. It is so worn, it just folds open. Same thing on the other side. This is my grandfather's Bible. trying to be careful with it. This is my grandfather's Bible. This is my grandfather's Bible. Trying to get to Romans, but I'm trying to be very, very careful at the same time. I don't really need to get to Romans. Because I could show you just about any page, but it's been the thing tonight to show you Romans. This is my grandfather's Bible. You can't really tell very well on the screen, I'm sure, but there's handwritten notes in there. There's handwritten notes, underlines, sometimes underlines in multiple colors. Bookmark after bookmark after bookmark. It still smells like my grandma's house. That is my grandfather's Bible. That is my heritage. There's been times where I've opened up my prayer journal and I've said, "Oh Lord God, the God of my fathers," as it's echoed in the Psalms, because I can truly say that. The God of my fathers. And my great grandfather was a believer, and my great great grandfather was a believer. But my grandfather bought himself a replacement for that Bible. It still almost looks brand new, even though it's probably 30 or 40 years old, which he had just started using. Again, we can see it better in Romans. She had just started using. My grandmother gave me this Bible, and I am just so thankful that she gave me this Bible. And I started using it as well. So I don't know if you can see it here. I don't know if I can get it in the frame the right way. But there's an underline right there, which is John chapter 4, verse 4. And there's a handwritten note next to it. Because I want to make an heirloom for my daughter. And if the Lord gives me, I want to make an heirloom for grandchildren. So, because I want my children and my grandchildren to know their heritage, to know where they come from, who their father was, who their grandfather was, who their great-grandfather was. It's important to me. That's heritage. My dad's Bible. My grandfather's Bible. That's heritage. Ooh. My dad's little one is in KJV, as I told you. This one, both this one and the one that I'm using are the 1977 edition of the NASB. So I think if I can find the copyright notice in the front, this is published by Foundation Press Publications for Lockman Foundation. Yep. The Lockman Foundation. Copyright 1960, 1962, 1963, 1968, 1971, 1972, and 1973. So this might be even a little bit earlier than the 1977 edition. But that's my heritage. So, I've been able to keep the last two episodes, so this episode and the previous episode, down to about 30 minutes. The first one ran a little bit longer. I think next, what we're going to work on next is I'm going to show you some of the study Bibles and things of that nature, and why you have so many different Bibles, because that is one of the big questions. Like, why do you have so many different Bibles? You really can only use one at a time unless you're really studying, in which case you can have a few open and compare. But as I showed you, I can do all that on my cell phone now too. So I think that's going to be the next one. So we're going to go through a few of the different Bibles and why I have them, why I use them, how I use them, what I'm doing. And yeah, I'm rather excited to keep going with this series. I'm hoping that you're enjoying it. It's a lot of fun to kind of dredge up some of this stuff and bring it out to show you. Again, I mean, it all comes back to, for this, with the heritage, with the Bible, with this, why do I love God's Word so much that I'm, keeping track of that heritage, and then moving on with making a heritage for my children, and so on and so forth, is my child. I only have one right now. The Lord may give us another, but I don't know, obviously. Is because it's a relationship. You see me write, you've read this in my words many times. It's a relationship. God speaks to us through His Word. He comes to us, He talks to us, He speaks to us out of His Word. It's a relationship. That's why it's called His Word. Sometimes we apply verses out of context, but for me, if we're going to go that far, we couldn't apply any verse to ourselves anyways. The letters were all written to congregations and groups. The prophecies are all for Israel and things of that nature. I mean, the Psalms were all written for the human heart, yes, but they're written for followers of Yahweh in strict temple Judaism. Everything in the law is for the Jew, not for the Gentile, unless you became a proselyte. And so, there's none of, exactly, like even just the letters were all written for congregation. So like the verse, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, isn't being said about I can do all that. Paul's using that as an example, not to one person, but to the whole congregation, that the congregation, earlier in Philippians, I know that he who started a good work in you will not let it come to naught, but will see that it is finished. I think that's how it is. I'm probably quoting a mixture of versions when I quote it that way, a mixture of the King James and a few others, or just pulling something off the top of my head. I have no clue. Philippians. Being confident of this very thing, that he which hath begun a good work in you will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. That's to a church, people. That, not a church. We are the church. That's to a congregation, people. It's not to a single person. We take that verse and we go, oh, the person that started a good work in me is going to bring it about to fruition. It's not what that verse is saying, if we're going to go with context. Now, Do I believe that? Do I believe that he who started good work in you is going to bring it about to fruition? Yes, I do. But if we're going to focus on the context too much, we're going to miss out on that. If we're going to focus on the context too much, we're going to miss out on it. So, but still it's about a relationship. Dialogue. God speaks to you. You speak to God. Right? That's why I love his word so much. Dialogue. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Sometimes in the midst of prayer and their struggle, he brings those verses to your mind. He goes, listen to what I said in my word. I'll never forget one time. So if you read my Experiencing Something Better in Kali Tarot, you read about when I prayed and I received an answer back. And that was mystifying and totally mystifying. And that's not the last time that that's happened, but one time sticks out very clearly in my mind, and it is I was praying. I had sinned, okay? I'm a sinner. I'll be the first one to tell you I'm a sinner. I had sinned. I don't remember what anymore. But I was angry because I felt guilty. And I was calling out to God and just like I was saying to him, just make me a robot. I don't care anymore. Just, cut it out of me. Make me perfect. I don't want to feel guilty anymore. And he said, the same way before, it wasn't a voice coming down from heaven or a presence of light in the room or anything. It was in the back of my head. I heard a voice. I heard an answer. I prayed, just make me a robot. Make me a good Calvinist. That's a poke about the majors and the minors beforehand, guys. I'm not a Calvinist, but that's a minor topic in my opinion. Go read my paper on the majors and the minors with those 5 major topics. You'll see that Calvinism doesn't break any of those. Neither does not being a Calvinist. So just leave that be, okay, people? But anyways, make me a robot so I don't sin anymore. And God said, what did I say to Paul when he prayed 3 times for the thorn in his flesh to be removed? So I wrote down the answer. My grace is sufficient for you. And he responded, my grace is sufficient for Paul. Calls himself the chief of sinners, who was able to claim that he was a murderer because he stood by and watched Stephen get martyred. My grace is sufficient for Paul, RB. This is not sufficient for you. Shut me up. I didn't have a thing to say. What do you say to that? For it is my power, he said, is made perfect in your weakness. That is the relationship. That verse came to mind. Why did that verse come to mind? Because I love to spend time in this word. He brings someone said it the best, and I can't improve upon this. Reading the word gives vocabulary to the spirit in your heart. So read the word. Enjoy the word. Build a heritage for your children. This is RB May with Believe Better Ministries, hoping that this video will help you to believe in something better.